You know, folks, the whole world is talking about Bitcoin. Want to know why? Maybe it's because Bitcoin rose in value over 150% last year, and this is just the beginning. Bitcoin is online investing that anyone can do. Visit bitcoinuniversity.org today. Take a master class. Download the Book of Bitcoin and take your investment portfolio to the next level. Visit bitcoinuniversity.org and discover all that a Bitcoin can do for you. That's bitcoinuniversity.org, bitcoinuniversity.org.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in places that could expose you to identity theft. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every second. If your identity is stolen, their US-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed or your money back. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
From Wall Street to the White House, this is the Larry Kudlow Show. Now, it's time for Protecting Your Future, sponsored by Colonial Metals Group. Here's Larry Kudlow.
Hi, everybody. I'm Larry Kudlow. This is Protecting Your Future, sponsored by Colonial Metals Group. And today we're going to talk about protecting your future by keeping a sharp eye on money and politics. We heard the stock market segment. Now we're going to do money and politics on the more political side. We've got Liz Peek, Fox News contributor, syndicated columnist. We've got John McIntyre, who's the president and CEO of Real Clear Politics and Real Clear Media. Welcome to both of you. Thanks for coming on. John McIntyre, I'd say so far, Mr. Trump's cabinet, promises made, promises kept. That's what he said in his victory speech. I think that's what he's doing, and he's basically going after the D.C. swamp. He's basically a disruptor. He's got Matt Gaetz at the Justice Department, Pete Hegseth at Defense, Bob Kennedy at HHS, Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are going to chop down the budget. This is exactly what I think voters want, John McIntyre. They want people to go after the D.C. establishment and the swamp. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I agree 100% with you, Larry. I think in some ways, you heard the drain the swamp line in the 2016 campaign, and, it wasn't really President Trump's fault that he wasn't as successful as he would have liked to have been, because as everybody knows, as soon as he won, he was under assault from people trying to throw him out of office with the Russia collusion hoax and all the subterfuge and the deep state going after him. And I think he has learned from that experience, not to mention the whole previous 4 years where they weaponized the Justice Department. And he knows that when he goes in here, he needs people heading these agencies and in the myriad of positions underneath of them that are going to follow his policy directions. He's the one who won the election. And part of the problem you had in the first term is that you would have people in a lot of these permanent bureaucracies, including some of the leadership, that just thought, well, I don't agree with that policy, or I'm not going to do that policy. And I think you've seen it with the appointments, the nominations that he's made. And I think that's why you see such a freak out by everybody in Washington who, think, well, this isn't normal, or this is breaking the norms, or there's some character issues there. And some of it is you need certain types of people who are willing to go in there and have just are fearless in many respects.
Yes.
To take on these entrenched bureaucracies and the Machiavellian games that they play to stay in power. And I thought this was coming, but I'm even surprised by the speed and the intensity of it. And I think it shows President Trump understands the urgency of the moment, and this is the time for him to make the difference.
And Liz Peek, how shocking is it that these people he's appointing are loyal? Just shocking. The liberal media cannot get over the fact that the word loyalist has now become a pejorative. All right,
Absolutely.
But it's not. It's exactly, it's what John McIntyre is saying. You need thick-skinned, tough people who are loyal to Trump and his ideas. Loyalists are good.
Yeah, as I said to you the other day, I think ally is a better word because, now loyalist is a dismissive term that basically wants to render all these people insignificant and not worthy. Liz McDonald went through a whole bunch of, and I was meaning to do this myself yesterday, go through the Biden cabinet, and let's look at the qualifications of some of those people and how they have performed. It is horrendous, and I've done that in the past. These are people largely, or at least oftentimes, selected because of DEI requirements. That obviously has gone out the window here. Trump is really picking people, as John said, who are aligned with him. And when you look back to the turbulence, as they have called it, for the first 4 years, a lot of the people who were dismissed or left or whatever, fired from the Trump White House, were not Trump people. They were Romney people or George Bush people, and they really didn't belong in that White House. But I think John really also said something incredibly important. Trump has learned a lot about how Washington works, about where the snakes are in the grass, and how to get around it. And he has a team now coming together that also gets how they operate. So I'm extremely cheered. I'm not in favor of all of them, as you know, but I think by and large, this is a fantastic group of people.
Part of the disruption is, some people like yourself may not be in favor of all of them, but you look at now, I'll go to the Matt Gaetz thing. I guess he's the most controversial. If they got something against Gaetz, all right, put it out there. But you're innocent until proven guilty. Gaetz is a tough conservative. He's a lawyer, Judiciary Committee, William and Mary Law School, Florida Bar. A lot of people don't like Matt Gaetz because he's very conservative. And he has sharp tongue as a Judiciary Committee member, very sharp tongue. Now, if you got ethics issues with him, fine. Put him out there. Let him. But he's innocent until proven guilty. Other stuff, Pete Hegseth. Pete Hegseth is a highly decorated veteran, in addition to being a very smart and well-educated guy and a good communicator on Fox News. You got something against Pete Hegseth? Fine, put it out there. I don't see it. We got to de-woke the Pentagon. We got to take a look at the generals. But most of all, we've got to have peace through strength follow-through. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., you may not agree. Look, Trump has said he doesn't agree with everything that Bob Kennedy says. I was talking to Bob Kennedy Thursday down in Florida. But, he's going to shake up the CDC. He's going to shake up the FDA. I think that's exactly right. Homan running ICE, for example, is very important. Radcliffe running the CIA. John McIntyre, this is what you want. Every one of them is a disruptor, okay? And that's what people want.
100%. And I just say, Molly Hemingway was on Fox last night and said, it's like, regarding the Gaetz nomination, it's like, people are sick and tired of people in Washington, D.C. doing nothing as these people, and she's talking about what she called the Department of Injustice, doing nothing as these people tried to destroy the country.
Right.
And so a lot of the people who are upset at Gaetz, it's like, well, how about being upset at what people using the Department of Justice did for the last 4 years in front of the country's face and acted like it was normal, because it's not normal. And so whether Gaetz is the right answer or not, the attitude from the president is, because he was the primary victim of this, okay, was like, this has got to change. And I think when you talk about Hegseth, there's a perfect example. It's like, there were stories where President Trump said, hey, I want to get out of Syria. And the generals would say, or he'll listen, or there's, be like, well, we don't agree with, so they just would back channel and find it. That's not their decision. He's the commander in chief. Okay. And, RFK, is everything that RFK says or believes correct? But it's like, after the country went through the COVID experience, I think a lot of people would rather have RFK than Anthony Fauci. Okay.
That's an easy one. That's an easy one, John.
So and a lot of it is it's just people want common sense. They want some pragmatists. They want people to actually get things done, and that means changing the entrenched bureaucracy. And you need change agents.
Right. Can I weigh in on the health issue on RFK Jr.?
Yeah, yep.
I mean, if there is any industry in our country that needs disruption, it is the healthcare industry. And I think everybody actually believes that. The trust in our healthcare institutions is 1/3 of Americans actually believe our health officials. That is pretty atrocious. A lot of that goes back to COVID, but it also goes back to the fact that we are spending twice as much per person as the average wealthy OECD country spends. And remember, much of that is through the government, so that's bound to be less efficient. We're spending twice as much, and we have worse outcomes. So there is no question that these industries, by the way, it also is processed foods, insurance, and healthcare. They spend hundreds of millions of dollars every year lobbying. They have undue clout, and no one dares take them on. So I'm perfectly okay with Robert Kennedy Jr. I think he's definitely out there on some issues. My guess is he'll rein in some of those, and the circumstances will rein him in. But I think it's fantastic to poke a hole in some of these bloated and inefficient institutions and companies.
And one of the things one of the great across-the-board losers, John McIntyre, is DEI and woke.
Big time.
Okay?
Yep.
And these are people that Mr. Trump's putting in the cabinet who are going to go after DEI and woke and critical race theory and transgenderism. You know, this was, I think, a hidden issue in this election. It didn't get enough play. It's a cultural issue of enormous, biological men playing in women's sports, for example. This was a big issue, John McIntyre.
I couldn't agree with you more, Larry. And I think in some ways you see this 8-year arc where when Trump first came in, it was he's a racist, he's a racist, he's a racist. And they ran on it heavy in 16. It was Biden's thing with Charlottesville in 20. And there was a little bit of it this time, but not as much. But there was one ad, okay, where they had Charlemagne the God and one of his co-hosts, and they were talking about Kamala is for sex change for prisoners. And they ran it in NFL games, and they ran it all in the battleground states, and it killed the Democrats. And because they were using her, and it was a metaphor for a woke and DEI ideology that has gotten crazy, that 80% of the country wants no part of.
Yep.
And it hurt the Democrats big time.
And she never denied it. Kamala never denied it. She'd never back off that. So you're right. Let's take a quick break. Okay, Liz Peek, Fox News, John McIntyre, Real Clear Politics. I'm Kudlow. We'll be right back, folks.
Larry Kudlow.
This episode is brought to you by Etsy.
Oh.
Hear that?
Okay. Thank you.
Etsy knows these aren't the sounds of holiday gifting. Well, not the ones you're hoping for. You want squeals of delight. Happy tears.
How did you?
And spontaneously written songs of joy.
I am so happy. Oh, yeah, oh, yeah, oh, yeah.
Okay, the song needs a bit of work, but anyway, to get those reactions, make sure everyone on your list feels heard with handmade, handpicked, and designed gifts from small shops on Etsy. Gifts like personalized jewelry, custom artwork, cozy style items, vintage pieces, and home decor to celebrate all of your favorite people and their specific kind of special. For original gifts that say, I get you, Etsy has it.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in places that could expose you to identity theft. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every second. If your identity is stolen, their US-based restoration specialists will fix it, guaranteed or your money back. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
This is the story of the one who, as a maintenance specialist for a historic high-rise, knows that vintage charm historically needs constant attention. which is why when it's time to upgrade turn-of-the-century mechanicals, they turn to Grainger. With easy access to 1 million-plus products and the scale to deliver when and where you need them. The right tools and supplies are never far away. So the one can keep that vintage building running like new. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. At Mint Mobile, we like to do the opposite of what Big Wireless does. They charge you a lot, we charge you a little. So naturally, when they announced they'd be raising their prices due to inflation, we decided to deflate our prices due to not hating you. That's right. We're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
From Wall Street to the White House, this is the Larry Kudlow Show.
Welcome back, folks. We're talking money and politics with Liz Peek, Fox News contributor, John McIntyre, Real Clear Politics. Liz Peek, I go to you. I know you just love this. So do I. The Musk-Ramaswamy project could be Trump's best idea. Wall Street Journal editorial this morning. Doge is going to become a household word. I just think of it as chopping down the federal government, Liz. But it is a great idea, and it has great promise. Go ahead. Lay it on.
I was so delighted to see the Wall Street Journal pick up on this. As you know, I do think it is absolutely huge. And here's just one data point for that. Under Biden, the federal workforce has grown 121,000 people. You know, you and I and Steve Moore and others have talked weekly about the fact that job growth has mainly been in the government and related industries and so forth. But, oh, my gosh, what are they doing? I mean, what are those 121,000 people doing? Nobody knows. And they've also, by the way, issued tens of thousands of new rules, pages in the Federal Register of Rules and Regulations. So they're just gumming up our entire country, Larry. I mean, I think this is going to be so much fun. I think you're going to have daily, practically, communications from this group on Twitter. By the way, that's driving Democrats nuts, asking for input, asking for ideas about where programs are that they can slice and cut. And the Wall Street Journal goes through how they can actually get this done. And whereas a lot of people kind of think it's just a figment of Elon Musk's imagination, the truth is you can do it. It can be done. So I can't imagine anything better for our country.
The work of an outside commission like this can be spliced into OMB, the Office of Management and Budget, because OMB presides over the regulatory function of the government. It's called OIRA, the Office of Information and Regulatory Affairs, which was first put into place by Ronald Reagan some 40 years ago when I was an assistant at OMB in those days. So that's how you do it. And it's interesting, John McIntyre, this is going to be a good budget cutting exercise, very good. You got also a lot of programs were obligated but unspent. They're going to go after that. But the regulatory side of this is going to be very important. Now, Vivek has said to me many times, you have the Supreme Court decisions backing them up. West Virginia versus the EPA, where West Virginia won, and the Chevron deference decision, which pushed back regulatory authority and regulatory mandates. Unless Congress passes a law, regulators cannot regulate, in effect. They cannot issue mandates. They are not allowed. Now, that means a lot of regulations will be slashed. It also means some of the regulatory agencies themselves may be cut, John McIntyre. How about those apples?
No, look, I think this can just be a gigantic game changer because it's a lot of times when politicians or people are trying to go, to deal with the debt or the deficits, and they're talking about cutting, it has a root canal politics type of angle, and they're cutting entitlements or things that, that politically can become a detriment. But when you're going after government workers, okay, and you're targeting efficiency, okay, I think I don't know that the politics plays the same way. I don't think it's negative politics. And the key, the efficiency gains that they can get from this and the regulatory relief powers growth, and that's the way that you're going to deal with the debt and the deficits. And so I just think it's a politically palatable and I think actually popular way to attack one of the major problems our country has, which is the our imbalance and by going at the complete bureaucracy in these agencies. And you got someone in Musk where it's like you got 10,000 employees at Twitter. He whacks out 80% of them, and the company is running at a higher efficiency than it had 10,000. So if you can bring that attitude across our entire federal government, the efficiency gains and the growth gains are going to be huge.
One other thing they're going to do, they have calculated over $500 trillion worth, over $500 trillion of federal assets. Okay, now this is something that I've pushed for I don't know how many decades. And you don't have to sell the assets, by the way. You can put the assets in play. You can lease them out to private sector operations and then get royalties. It's kind of like leasing land sales for oil and gas. It's similar. There's a lot you can do here. The debt, the publicly held debt is $27 trillion. Total debt is $35 trillion. This is $500 trillion of federal assets that could be over time put into use. It's something that Vivek and Elon are both looking at. So, I'm not saying they're going to retire the debt, Liz, but I'm saying their deficit to GDP and the debt to GDP numbers are going to come down a lot. And then when you couple that with tax cuts, I think you've got an incredibly powerful mix of growth without inflation.
Yeah, I mean, that's the hope, right, that you really stimulate growth because, as John says, I don't see how we get out from under us now. Actually, yesterday it crossed $36 trillion in federal debt. I don't know how we begin to bring that under control. I mean, it's sort of worth noting that our deficit to GDP is about twice what Europe's is. I mean, one of the reasons, Joe Biden's always talking about how ours is the best economy in the world, best growth and everything. Yeah, because it's been fueled by this enormous bloated federal budget, which, again, has added 121,000 people. My guess is, Larry, an awful lot of those people are DEI appointments because, remember, one of the first things he did was insist that every federal agency undertake a massive DEI effort. Boy, is that going to be easy to get rid of, and I think very popular.
Exactly.
Hey, Liz, I got one more for you. I know this is a big favorite of yours. Congestion pricing here in New York.
Oh, God.
How about that? Congestion pricing. I got 30 seconds, Liz. Go ahead. What is it?
Okay, so, I liken this idiocy in New York to you own a store, you're losing business because prices are better elsewhere. Do you put up a barrier at the front of your store and say, hey, now you have to pay to come in? Of course not. That is what Kathy Hochul's doing. It's the most cynical, ridiculous way to tax and raise even more money on the backs of New Yorkers who, by the way, are leaving. Doesn't she get that? And, Larry, all they need to do is cut taxes. And all my friends in Palm Beach would stream back to New York and celebrate.
Liz Peek, thanks very much. John McIntyre, thanks very much, folks. We appreciate it. I'm Kudlow. Thanks for listening, everybody. We will be back next weekend.
Janine Pirro here for Colonial Metals Group. Colonial Metals Group helps Americans protect their future with the most trusted store of wealth in human history, physical gold and silver. If you're retiring or retired, go to colonialmetalsgroup.com/Pirro for your free Janine Pirro Colonial Metals Group Retirement Protection Kit or call 800-965-8004. 800-965-8004 now to receive a free home safe and up to $7,500 in free silver.